Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm making a doll for a collaboration I was a part of over on Instagram. This doll collab was My Hero Academia themed, so everyone chose a character from the show and made a doll of said character. At first I wanted to make Aizawa, but someone had already chose him for the collab, so I went with my second choice and second fave character at the moment, Pro Hero Ooak. No one had chosen him, so I was thrilled. For Ooak, I'm going to use this Jungkook doll as the base. The first thing I did is actually wash the gel off of his hair to be able to cut it more easily. After cutting his hair, I dunk his head in a cup of hot water to make it easier to remove from the neck peg. And then, using pliers, I removed the remaining hair from the inside. This took a while because they are like melted in place or something. I don't know how to describe it, to be honest. Now that he's bald, I remove his face with an acetone soaked Q-tip and a lot of scrubbing. BTS faces are printed on, so it takes a while. I also removed the painted scalp. I trimmed the neck peg shorter to make my life easier later. Then I get out my bundle of yarn I dyed the right color, cause it was too light to the point it almost looked white next to his skin tone. Also, it didn't match Ooak's hair color very well. I'm gonna separate each strand into multiple smaller strands. And then I'm gonna use my homemade rerouting tool to reroute the whole head. After rerouting the whole head, I secure the reroute with glue inside the head. After it's dry, I brush the yarn out with a pet brush. A lot of excess came out, but now it's time to straighten it all with a flat iron to make it nice and smooth and very shiny. I did one small section at a time for the best results. Then I decided to move on to the body. Ooak is like 5'7" or 172 centimeters tall, and since I want to make more Hero Academia dolls eventually, I want the height differences to be somewhat accurate and noticeable. Since I wanted to make Aizawa first with also a BTS doll but with no body mods, I decided that would be my starting point or reference. And with the power of math and calculations, I came to the conclusion that I needed to remove about an inch from this doll, or 2.5 centimeters. I marked on each leg how much I'm gonna cut off with a Sharpie and ruler. I make sure to cut above the feet joint so I don't ruin this doll's posability. Once I'm done marking the legs, I take my courage and saw both legs with a jeweler saw. Then I did my best to make some holes on the legs and feet so I can have a piece of wire holding them together along some super glue. After the glue dried, I carved some of the plastic off. Then use epoxy putty to blend the new modifications together with the doll. I sanded it with my Dremel after I cured and painted that off camera. Then I decided to work on the wings. I printed out a picture to reference Ox's wings and it was a good size for the doll, so I used it as a template. On the back side, I also sketched the shape of the wing and the metal armature I'll have to make for them to be posable. Using my thicker and strongest wire, I bent it into the shape I drew while referencing it for the size to be correct. I twist the ends together, attach and secure a rectangular magnet to each armature using hot glue. Also make sure that the sides of the magnet attracts each other. Then I hot glued temporarily 2 other magnets on the back of the doll to see how they look on him. It was a bit too high, so I removed the magnet and the hot glue and glued them back on, but lower, and I liked it way more like this. I trimmed the excess wire of the armature with my pliers, and then the wing's metal armature was done. Now, time to cover it with some red fabric that matches the feathers I bought. I cut the piece out and cut it in 2 pieces that covers the armature on both sides. I decided to use glue to join both pieces together, encasing the armature between the 2 fabric pieces. It was a bit of a hassle, and looking back, maybe sewing would have been a better idea, but oh well. I ended up letting it dry under a bunch of heavy stuff to be sure both sides stick together well. And now I repeat the same step with the second armature. This second one I tried out with Mod Podge instead of fabric glue, and I actually had to re-glue it later on when I trimmed the excess off. So fabric glue is way better for this. After both wing bases were trimmed and well glued, I went ahead and painted the hot glue red to match the wings and be less noticeable later. Once dry, it was time for the feathers. I got this bag of 100 feathers off Amazon for his wings. Let's hope it's enough feathers. At first, I wasn't sure how to do this, so I got out all the feathers of the bag and played around a bit, brushing the feather with a toothbrush to see how it looked, and then I went ahead and cut it into a more pointy feather shape to match my reference. And then I realized this. Oh goodness, his wings are gonna be huge. Spoiler! I went with it anyways. Cutting just one feather made a bit of a mess, as you can see, and my lint roller wasn't very efficient, to be honest. And I thought watching me cut a million feathers would be boring. So I cut a bunch off camera. I was a smart cookie and cut the first and longer feathers in double, one for each wing, and they matched the size and length of the ones on my reference. I actually had to flat iron the feathers one at a time before gluing them on the wing base because they were curvy and that was not helping. I used high-tack extra tacky craft adhesive for gluing the feathers. I trimmed the quill, or as it's apparently called, the calamus part of the feather, so they lay down flat and were glued properly. I did that to each feather one by one, and then cut a bunch even smaller to finish the first row of feathers. Then I let that one dry and did the same thing on the other wing base. I should have reversed the reference and wing base to be the mirror image of the first one I did, but I forgot to do that, so I might just roll with it. It looks fine in the end, I promise. Then I let that dry and started the second row of feathers on the first wing, and I carried on like this, going back and forth between both wings until they were completely covered in feathers. I did both sides, of course. Once I reached the top edge of the wings, I took a bunch of fluff I cut from the feathers and glued it on with a bunch of glue. On both sides, making the wings nice and pretty. I trimmed the excess and they are done. For my first pair of, well, posable doll wings, I think they look fantastic. They are super posable and it looks beautiful. I'm kinda in awe at them, to be honest. And dare I say it, they are pretty darn show and size accurate in my opinion. I kinda was in awe at them for a few minutes, to be honest. Just like posing them around and enjoying my work.
It's so cool! Oh my god. It's so... Wow, his wings are so big, it's hard to... Wow. Y'all, his wings are massive. Holy my god. Oh my god, his wings are massive. Holy jeez. Wow. I'm in love with them. Holy Magikarp. They're massive.
I had to super glue the magnet to the hot glue, by the way, because that didn't hold well. Now, time for his hero suit. I was fortunate enough to already have some clothes that fit him pretty well. I reused the hoodie and pants pattern I made for the Carmen Sandiego dolls I did a while back. Video in the description. I'll just have to do a few tweaks to both garments to fit the design of Ox's hero costume, and for it to fit the doll better. Using my trace with glue technique, I traced a pattern on some beige fabric I got my hands on for this project. I'm still using fabric glue, by the way. After I traced and let dry everything, I can cut the pieces out with scissors. And apparently the only thread I have that matches my fabric was in super low quantity, so I had to end sew by hand instead to use it in my sewing machine, because otherwise I would have run out of thread really fast. Took longer, but it looks great, so I'm not mad about it. And now for continuity's sake, let's work on the face up, cause I did it in between making the clothes, so his full face is visible later, so let's work on it now. I masked his hair off and covered his body so I could spray his face with MSC and be able to start sketching his new face on him. I used a light brown pencil first, and sketch his eyeliner and brows. I also sketched a eyelid line thing because I thought it looked good and it matched the anime. I also sketched the eyes. I also went back with the brown pencil to darken the nostrils and use a yellow watercolor pencil to fill the iris and eyebrows in, and I sketched his facial hair. To have a quick look at how it looks. I sealed this first layer with more MSC and then used more yellow for his eyes, and I drew the eyeliner black with a black watercolor pencil. I filled in the eye whites with a white pencil and filled the eyebrows with a brown pencil this time. Sprayed that second layer with MSC, and it's now time to get out some acrylic paints and finish this face up. I mixed a dark golden beige color for his eyes and started filling his irises with it. I added a lighter line of golden beige as well to match the show. Then I wanted to paint his eyebrows, so I revealed his hair color, then mixed some paint that matched pretty closely. I painted his eyebrows with it and his facial hair. Then I painted his lips a neutral pink and nostrils. I filled the eye whites and attempt the pupils before painting over them and trying again. Second try is much better. And then I finish it off by adding the catch lights.
And now that the face is done, I'm going to work on the clothes once again. For the coat, I'm needing strips of fur. So I'm going to cut out strips of fur and remove the excess fur using a rolling sticky thingy. I forgot the actual name, but you can see it on the screen. I mark and cut the length I need for the sleeves. Pin it in place. And this is a mistake I had made. I was cutting up smaller pieces for each side panels of the coat and actually need one long piece that goes all the way around in the front to mimic Ox's coat. I'm going to adjust the fur all around the edge and pin it in place. I also re-pinned in place the back piece of fur I had attached using pins. I'm going to actually fold it around the edge like I did in the front. And this is the moment I realized I had forgot to make the color piece somehow. So I got out the pen and a piece of paper and I started tracing a new pattern for the color. I traced it in a way that would fit on the coat since apparently I didn't have a pattern for it earlier. Here you can see I got out the doll again to kind of see how the coat looks so far and how the color might look on him. I want it to be the good height so it matches the reference. Once I was happy with the pattern, I traced it on fabric using glue. Cut it out and sewed it together, turn it inside out. Then I pin and sew it under the coat. I sew the whole way around the fur onto the fabric. Then I pin and sew the sides of the coat closed. Then I adjusted the pins to the doll. They were a bit big, so I made them a bit smaller on each side. I turned them inside out and then put them on the doll, and they fit much better. Then I worked on this black shirt with yellow stripes. I made a pattern. I don't have the footage of that, but here it is traced on black fabric that I'm cutting out. This is stretchy fabric from an old t-shirt, and I'm just going to hand sew it as well. As expected, it's too big for the doll, so I'm going to take each side in to make it tighter on the doll. And now it fits like a glove. Then I got out my vinyl sticker sheet for cutting out shapes and stuff with like a cry cut and that you stick on things. I wanted to get the one that you can iron to fabric, but I kind of messed up and I got one that is meant to like be stuck on surfaces that are not fabric. So I'm still gonna use it because that's what I got at the moment while recording this video, and maybe in the future I'll remake a shirt, but it did stick really well onto the fabric and I am not really going to change his clothes very much, so I think it's fine. Though if you want something better, I would really recommend getting the iron-on version instead. I'm going to turn the sticker sheet onto its back so I can trace behind it the shapes I need. Once I'm done, I get out my X-Acto knife and cut them out. Once I'm done cutting out the shapes and satisfied with them, I'm going to stick them onto the doll shirt, doing my best to align them properly and to stick them on well. And as you can see, it's turning out pretty good for the fact I used the wrong material, but hey, it's right color, so I guess that works. And here it is done. It's surprisingly nice looking. So yeah, I'm happy with this. It's looking good. Then I went back to the pants and sewed the seam of the waist. I put them on the doll and realized I needed to do the back pocket, so that's what I'm doing here. I made a really quick pattern, traced it on fabric with glue, and cut it out. I'm also making cuffs for the pants, which at this point I had forgot to do. And I actually had to do it a second time because my first try did not turn great. Also, I made a sock pattern and cut it out and sewed it to make some quick socks for him using black stretch fabric. And here are the shoes for Hawks. I made these back in my Luxray video. These are BTS shoes. I painted blue to match Luxray, and I ended up not using them. So I'm going to repaint them for Hawks instead. And it's really simple. I'm just painting them completely black to match his shoes in the show. I also made the second pair of shoes black, also BTS shoes, in case I didn't like the previous pair. But I ended up preferring the first pair over these ones. And here we are back to the coat. As you can see, it's all sewed together. I turn it inside out and put it on the doll. I would have showed this bit before, but as you can see in the footage, you can see the shirt, the socks, and the shoes done, and the pants done. And I didn't want to show that before showing how I made all of these things. And here you can see I'm tracing in the back a square. That I'm going to cut out from the coat so I can put Ox's wings there instead. Because the fabric kind of interfere with the magnets and I don't want that. I'm going to finish his coat. For real this time. I keep adding stuff onto it, I'm sorry. I have some really small brads that I can use to mimic buttons on this coat. And while showing them off, I realized I had not added his front pockets yet. So here I am tracing them out really quickly in the footage. And I made a small pattern, cut it out, traced it on fabric using glue. And then I cut the pattern out so I can make the little flap in the front for the pocket. I also traced that onto fabric using glue. Once everything is dry, I cut it out and pin/sew it onto the coat. I sew it out by hand as well. And here is some footage of how it looks after it's done. You can see the pockets actually work. They're really tiny though, but hey, his hand can kind of fit in there. Also, the flap works as well, and you can see I added the brads onto it. So it looks like a button, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. And here you can see that I actually can keep this flap down by just putting the brad through the fabric of the back, and it just stays there like that. I did it on the other side the same way. You can see it in the footage. And once that pocket is done, I add the rest of the brads onto the front where the buttons are supposed to be on this coat. I try to space them correctly and to add as many as I'm supposed to add. I realized these somehow has buttons on both sides, so that's what I'm adding here, more brads, and this is how it looks. And here is some miscellaneous footage which I wasn't sure where or when to add into the video. Here is some testing out of the yellow glasses that he wears, also some earrings trial I did, which I ended up not using. I tried to use them, but they were way too big, and then I ended up using a sewing pin, flat top thingy, not sure how it's called, but you know, the part of it that makes it not go through fabric like a needle, and I cut that out and used it as a earring instead because it was a good size and it looked better than what I had sculpted. I just painted it red to match. 4 is headphones. I have this, I actually got a Barbie clothing set thingy. It was a pilot set, so it came with headphones like these that I'm showing on screen now. Of course, they're Barbie, so I'm going to modify them to match Hawk's headphones in the show, but I'm actually going to keep the mic because I think it looks really cool. And I mean, I guess he probably has one in his headphones, but I think it looks good like this, so I'm going to keep that. I'm just going to remove the Barbie logo with an X-Acto blade, a nail file, and some elbow grease. Once that's done, I just painted black first. Surprisingly enough, it took a couple coats to be opaque. Once I was done painting his headphones, I moved on to his belt. For his belt buckle, I got out another sheet of sticker vinyl paper and I cut up the pieces I needed. Then I cut up a piece of foam for his belt and I just painted it brown. Once it was dry, I looped it around his waist and then I stuck the buckle on it. Then I moved on to his hair. I just looked at the reference and tried to mimic it as best as possible. I used a razor blade, a toothbrush, small scissors, and a lot of patience to get his hair right. And here is Pro Hero Ox. I am really happy with how it turned out. This was a huge project. It's the first time I've ever made doll wings. This video took a while to make. It took me 3 years to fully edit it. There's a lot that happened in my personal life. A lot. Which prevented me from doing more of YouTube. I've been way more active on Instagram because I just kept on focusing on commissions and Instagram, which I still am going to do because it's really hard to do both at the same time. I don't know if this video is gonna do well. Feel free to share, like, and comment as much as you want on it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll try to post again soon. And yeah, I hope y'all like him. Bye, everyone.
I am fangirling so hard. Oh my god, they're so cool. Oh my god. Oh, I don't know what to say, they're so cool. Oh my god.